Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OneMicNite, the podcast that brings you stories of people on their journey, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you and inspire you in life and the business. My name is Marcos Luis, and I want to thank you guys for joining me on this journey. Today, we are doing another episode of Global Connection. We're talking about human experiences. We're talking about life and how we can reach across the world to help other people. My guest today is an incredible woman. I've known her for a while, and in the last few years, she's championed some things in her native country. So we're going to talk to her. So please welcome Savanna Madomambe to OneMicNite. Welcome, Savanna.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming me.
I'm so glad you could be here. Yes, I'm so glad you could be here. So I've known you for a long time, and we haven't seen each other for a while, right?
Yes.
But every now and then I run across people who are doing things in the world that, you know, strike a bone or nerve or, you know, something incredible with people. And that's human connection. Yeah. And I hopped in on a live with you, it probably was a year ago or so. But yes, you were championing a cause that just, you know, resonated with me. And first of all, let's tell people who is Savanna Madomambe.
Listen, Savanna was born in Zimbabwe. Let's give the listener a chance to understand the background a little bit. So I was born in Zimbabwe. This year it will be about 54 years ago. So I was raised back then in Zimbabwe, it was sort of a middle class. My dad was a teacher and a headmaster, which really is a school principal. And my mom, much more like me, was a woman who could venture into human, you know, championing for other human beings. Sometimes she would be working formally. Sometimes she would informally be working and making sure that we're okay as a family. I was born in a family of about 10, 5 boys, 5 girls. So, yeah, I learned to speak out. You have to speak out when you have 10 of you. Otherwise, you'll be drowned somewhere. Right. I'm a middle child. So, came into the US around 1999, somewhere there. And I think that's around 2000. That's probably where we met.
Right.
And been around, yes.
What is life in Zimbabwe? What is life like? I mean, I know the country itself has about 14 million people, but what is life for an average person there?
Yeah. So if we're talking about what is life for an average person right now it is a nightmare. If you are not part of the 5% of the population that's doing well, you are either outside in the diaspora like me, you are working 24/7, working shifts so that you can take care of yourself here, and also be able to assist others back home.
Wow.
For the people that are back home, if you're lucky, you work for the government and you earn very little, or you are not employed or you're self-employed. You have to figure out how to take care of your family. So most people are trading, selling something so that they can be able to take care of themselves. And I think at some point they were saying we have about 5 million of us outside of Zimbabwe trying to do this.
5 million outside of Zimbabwe trying to make money to send back home to the people that live in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
What's the main source of income for the country? Is it agriculture? Is there one?
So Zimbabwe is very, very rich. Agriculture tops everything else because we have land, we have beautiful weather, we have a climate that's that everybody would just die for, right?
Right.
Sometimes we do have drought, and it can mess up with agriculture, but almost everybody who can take care of themselves, they do so by, if it's in the majority of the people who are in the village, they do agriculture. And then we have obviously the farming, which is why it was very controversial a few years back when the farms were being redistributed, and it created a ripple effect of some of the problems that we have.
So what do you mean? The government took control of the farms and they redistributed the farms according to what they wanted to do? Is that what you mean? Or
I'm talking about it. Yeah, the land redistribution that was done by the government.
Mhm.
The story of land is a topic on its own that we don't want to venture into right now.
Okay.
It will take the whole entire subject of our discussion. But yes, at some point, the government tried to redistribute the land. And of course, there are a lot of issues behind that.
Wow. So someone who used to own something may not now own what they had before, or maybe a little percentage of what they had before. In terms of,
So this is why I said the land redistribution story is very complicated. Zimbabwe, the majority of the population, obviously, the indigenous majority are the Black Africans.
Mhm.
And then at that point, there were about 5% of population of the white Zimbabweans or Rhodesians at that point. How any one of them got land was different. Some bought their own land, some inherited large amount of land that had been taken from the Blacks prior to independence. So that's the story. That's why I say the story is complicated.
Gotcha.
And then when it was, the government came up in trying to redistribute so that we can have the 95% of the population have on some land. And that's where some of the biggest problems began.
And have some of the land and have some way to feed themselves, but not on the government's money, I guess, so to speak. I don't know if you can say that, but I probably.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it sounds complicated.
It's very complicated. It needs a whole subject to explain it.
So where does that leave people? That leaves people destitute. It leaves people.
So necessarily, some people were left destitute. Some people were because it never was done right. And when something like that is happening, there's never the right way of doing it. Somebody's just going to get screwed up, just like in the beginning when it was taken, people got screwed up. Now, the big issue in Zimbabwe right now is that the country's economy crashed a long time ago. And when we're talking about Zimbabwe's economy and Zimbabwe as a country, in my opinion, it crashed the whole 9 yards of a failed state. There's no other way of explaining it. It's not a popular opinion that we are a failed state. The reasons why we are a failed state are many and varied. Again, it's a topic that you may want to come again and we'll talk about it. But because there's no easy way of explaining it in one sentence.
Right. I guess it's based on history and the way the government was set up, and through the years hasn't been equally distributed things.
That, and also that there is sheer corruption. Yes. Corruption is there, and we can't. I will not mince my words on that. There's corruption. It's part of why the society is now where we are, because when people are not being held accountable to the things that they are doing, it starts from the top. Now it's right at the bottom where no one wants to do the right thing.
Right.
We're all responsible at the moment. Everybody's now responsible for the state that we are in.
Right. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So where does that fit in with what you were doing? So are there organizations, obviously probably not led by the government, but through private sectors, people trying to help others get off the street or find, get housing or food? Where does that come into play?
All right, so let me give a background history of what I do and how it started. It started maybe back in 2008. I started a nonprofit that used to, with my sister who was back home, I would send whatever I could, raise here, do what I could, to take care of orphans that were being left by parents. At that point, we were having a huge problem. We were in an epidemic in Zimbabwe. Of course, it's a pandemic of HIV and AIDS, but Zimbabwe had been heavily affected. We had a lot of orphans who were being left, and we had child-headed homes. We had young kids being taken care of grandparents that were unable to take care of them. So that's really the basis of how we started. But as time goes by, it was evolving. And then we started helping. We were growing and we were doing what we could. So at some point, we got a little bit of funding from someone. We were distributing food hampers to as far as the other city, which is Bulawayo, Harare. I'm from the capital city, Harare. But what we were doing it in the village. Now, what made us jump from where we are is that right after the pandemic, the new pandemic, COVID, I was in New York City, and we all know what was happening in New York City. It was a horrific time to be in New York City that whole time. I really could not handle being in New York City at that point. I really wanted to leave. I wanted to go anywhere. But I couldn't leave for the longest because everything was shut down. But once the first flight opened, I think I bought tickets 3 times. And each time I would return at the airport because either something has been changed, a rule, you can't fly through here, you have to go back.
Right.
And then one time, then Ethiopian Airways started just ferrying people. I decided I'm going to abandon the other tickets. I bought a ticket with Ethiopian Airways and I left and went to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, like I said, is a beautiful country with a beautiful weather. The minute I got there, I went to the village. That's where my mom is. Just being in the village where there's space and the sun, my mood shifted at that point. I started feeling good again. I started feeling better because I was really suffering from depression, just being in New York City.
Right, as most people did here in New York City. And
absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely. Yes. I felt like the world was coming to an end.
Right.
Yeah. So this is how it then started. When I got there, I saw my brother, who is about 44 this year. I had never seen a dead man walking, but he was a dead man walking. He was so skinny. There was something just not right about him. He couldn't sleep. He would wake up the whole night just doing things that were like, you would realize there's something not right. But after a while, having conversations with him, then he said to me, I'm on crystal meth. But I dismissed it. I didn't think it was real. I couldn't imagine him being able to find crystal meth in Zimbabwe. So I said to him, you gotta be kidding me. You're not on crystal meth. You don't know what crystal meth is. He said, no, I do. And then he started explaining to me about the drug. Of course, it was something that they had read somewhere, memorized, and he was just telling me what crystal meth is. And then he said, look, Then I said, you need help. You need to get rehabilitation. You need all this kind of stuff. And then he was like, yeah, but the problem is that if you do give me help alone, it's not going to help, because the minute I go back home, all my friends are on crystal meth. Most of the young people in the community are on crystal meth.
Yeah.
So if you take me, I go back to my community, I'm just going to relapse. Which is the truth.
Which is very true, yes. Which is true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I said, no, I need you to, you're not telling me the truth. I need you to show me. So immediately, in trying to encourage him to really trust me and get me to show me what the problem was, I also say to him, look, I want to record this. I want to do a documentary out of this. I'm prepared to put money on it and do a documentary, so that if it's true, people out there can see it. Because as you know, I'm a storyteller.
Yes.
I also do investigative journalism. So I always go in and find these stories and find the truth and try to find a solution to it. So I went, I hired a crew, and then we went in. I said to him, look, find me your friends who are willing to show me and talk. And I promise that once I have the story, I'm going to do what I can to get the story out there so that they can find help. And I also promise that I will come back at some point when I'm able to raise money or to do this and get them into some rehabilitation of some sort. And they must also be agreeable to the conditions that they should get help. So when I got to his place, which is he still lives where we grew up, there were about 10 people there. I thought that was a large number, and the most shocking part was that the youngest of them all there was about 14. A young boy who was about 14, and then a young girl who was about 13. Wow. Immediately, I said to myself, I can't take the stories of the minors because I would get in trouble. I took the story of the 14-year-old, but obviously it's not released. But I also was curious to find out who his family was and why he was on crystal meth at 14 and on the streets. So I started following their stories, and then they started taking me to all these places, and I started meeting more and more, and I realized that it was a disaster, a nightmare. There were so many people.
There were so many people, yeah.
Oh my God, there were so many people.
Let me ask you this. I don't want to, interrupt the story, but do you think that the parallel is just like here in the United States? It's a means of getting away from what's happening. If you can have the crystal meth and, you're living in poverty, or you're living in, somewhere where you're not getting what you need, the go-to thing, it doesn't necessarily have to be crystal meth, but it's some sort of drug or alcohol or, something to get you away from all that. And also knowing that, possibly there's no future for you to do anything. There's no future for you to go anywhere, You
nail it. You nail it.
Of course.
It's a getaway.
Yeah, it's a getaway.
We all know that usually it's a getaway, right? From whatever is happening.
You also said something that was very important too, and I'm sorry,
it's okay.
Said about your brother. You said you're not going to do it unless he wants to help himself. You weren't going to help him unless,
Yeah. So you see, that belief system, I had it when I was here, because that's sort of the what we're told when we're here, that you can't help someone. So like I'm in California right now, I'm in San Diego. You know what that means, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The drug culture is crazy. So there are hundreds and hundreds of people on the streets, and my mind keeps circling and saying, are you telling me we can't do anything about this? I don't believe so. So when I went to Zimbabwe, that was the same thing, where I was just saying the things that I had been told here, that when someone is on drugs, you can't help them unless they want the help. I've since discovered that's not true. Now, with my brother, he wanted help. But as much as he wanted help, he couldn't help himself. He had gone way too deep.
Mm.
You understand?
Yeah.
Unless somebody was going to push for him and route on his side and push where he can't push, that was the end.
Yeah.
You understand?
I understand.
And the same with these young people that I met. They were way deep. And it is a parallel when I look at everything that I've explained to you about Zimbabwe right now being a nightmare. I'm not surprised that the young have turned to drugs.
Right.
And also remember the pandemic. As much as we were having a hard time in New York City, all I had to do was make a phone call and I had food.
Right.
Somebody was going to be able to give me food at any given time. Even though I was staying at home and I wasn't working, the government here and there were dropping in a few coins and we were able to survive.
Right.
But in terms of food, there was absolutely, I wouldn't say all the time I was in New York City, I ever starved.
Right. We definitely had access. You're right.
We had access. We had resources.
Right.
But when the pandemic hit Zimbabwe, there were no resources. There was nothing for people. They were just told to stay in these quarantine zones. To me, it reminded me of that movie called Quarantine.
Yes.
I think it's called Contagio. If you ever saw it, it was a nightmare because here we have people that have been put in these zones where I felt it was a death trap. You understand?
Yeah. Where
you are in a death trap. Just stay in those ghettos. We call them ghettos. Just stay there. There's no relief. No one is giving you food. You can't go work for your kids. And the only working that they can do is on the streets, and they're not being allowed to be on the streets. And these kids are not going to school. There is nothing. When the pandemic was hitting, my 13-year-old was going to school in the house. They gave him a laptop. If we didn't have internet, they made sure they would ask you, they would provide for you.
Provide it for you, exactly.
Exactly, and he continued his schooling at home.
Right.
But all these thousands and thousands of kids, all of a sudden, were not going to school. They had nothing to do. They were hanging out on the streets. And what happened? When they were hanging out on the streets, the drug dealers were on the prowl. They increased. Right. All of a sudden, they're just giving these kids, hey, you want to try this, you want to try, and you know, once you try crystal meth once, you're done.
You're done. It's a wrap.
And that's what happened. So here are kids not going to school, not understanding what somebody's telling them, hey, just try this. It gives you energy. It makes you feel. And now we have a problem where kids are dropping out from school, dropping out from colleges. It's no longer the same as here in the US.
Right.
Because this is just, I've never seen such magnitude. I'm not trying to exaggerate.
No, I believe you. And it's like what we just said. It's, maybe not having access to food and the things we need and schooling, but they had access to the drugs. And that's what took them under.
Absolutely.
It's like New York in the 1980s when crack came around. Crack was $5. It's $5. Everybody could buy crack. Yeah.
That's where we are. Yeah. That's where we are. And crack is there too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. That's it. Wow.
Yep.
And so what did you do to help this journey?
So once that happened, obviously I took to, my usual way of speaking is social media.
Right.
I took to social media. I started asking questions. I started talking. I started tagging anyone I could. I was asking questions. We have a problem. Are you telling me I'm the only one who can see it? I started talking. I started my usual is try to convince the people that are around me first to say, look, this is the problem. If I can't convince the people around me, there's no way I can convince others. So I tried to convince my sister, number one. And I was like, look, we have a problem. I need you to help me. I can't do this by myself. And she was like, oh, look, I'm tired of you. Each time you come, You have all these things that you start.
All these ideas, all these.
You have all these ideas, and then at the end of the day, you take off and you leave me with all these things in my hands. I said, well, this is not the same. This is a problem. The thing is that I try to help. I try to ignite an idea, right? And I'm hoping that somebody's going to catch that idea and take off with it. But usually people wait and watch someone do it and don't join in. I can't do anything by myself, but I am trying to ignite an idea. So it means people you're not getting it. So I said, look, this is different. It's a problem that's going to affect you sooner or later if you do not help. And I said, okay, anyway, I'm just going to go continue to do what I'm doing. I continued talking, and soon enough, she realized that I'm not stopping, and this is a problem. And also because I just started using her house. I was staying with her. And then all of a sudden she would see people showing up at her house. And I'm like, this is so-and-so, I'm doing this with this person. Oh, I'm doing a video. We are doing this. She couldn't run away. I just had to, and we started in her house. This whole thing started in her house. We started using her house as an office. We started recruiting from there. We started talking from there. We started going to talk to people because she's just a natural counselor. She's someone who can easily talk to people. And that's how it started.
Wow. That's beautiful. And that's what they say too. Like when you start something, you may not necessarily be good at everything, but you get those people who are good in certain areas to join forces with you. So if she's a good counselor, she's the one to talk to people, but you're the person with a plan, or you're the person that can orate everything or document everything.
Exactly.
And that's how all the parts fit together.
Exactly. I was like, you know what? I know exactly what needs to be done, but I can't do it all. She's an administrator. She has a master's in administration and all this kind of. I said, you have all the education. You can do this. You can run this thing. But she had already given up. She was also like, you know what? I'll never get a job. She had taken all her certificates, her education, shelved it somewhere there, and forgotten about it. But now she's running this thing.
This is good.
Doing amazing.
Tell us the name of the nonprofit.
So the organization is called Mubatirapamwe, and Mubatirapamwe essentially means doing it together, working together.
Say it one more time.
Mubatirapamwe.
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 Okay.
Yeah, close enough. So so essentially what we were saying is these as an organization, when we are talking about this issue that we have, there's no way we're going to be able to do it ourselves. We need every stakeholder involved, including the government, including the community itself. They need to do something. So we started lobbying the government. We started lobbying the community. We started doing campaigns in the community. We started going and talking to anybody, private sector, to say, look, this is a problem. Everybody is affected and will be affected sooner or later. If your brother is not doing drugs, like my brother, you are going to be affected because my brother is going to rob you.
Right.
My brother is going to beat you up.
Yeah. The effect of it all.
Will be affected.
Yeah. Yep. If he's not doing it, he's going to be a victim of it.
Exactly.
Somehow.
He's going to steal. That's somebody's going to steal from you. Somebody's going to rob you in the street.
Right.
Because they want money for the drugs.
That's so true. And so how long has the organization been running? You said 2008?
2008, doing different things, we officially registered it in 2020. Because all this time that we were working, we had never really officially registered it. So we officially registered in 2020.
Good.
So, yeah.
How can we help? How can we help anybody who's, listening in the United States, anybody around the world that's listening to this podcast? How can we help?
There are so many ways. The experience that people have here in the US dealing with drugs is essential. The reason why I was it was so easy for me to jump in and understand what to do is because I had been exposed in New York City.
Right.
I knew exactly what to do. Remember, I'm not sure if you, oh, no, you were not with me yet. When we separated and we went our ways after that whole, the last time we worked together, I started working in Harlem.
Okay.
And working in Harlem exposed me to a lot, including the drug dealers coming into the clubs, trying to, including then dealing with people on the streets. And most of the time, the people that I tried to hire were people who were recovering from drugs. And I was working with organizations that were helping. So at some point, I even took one young man and we started living with him and helping him. But you would say, please do not let me be idle. So he would work literally 24/7. 24/7.
Wow.
The minute he got idle, the minute I thought he was okay, and we found him his own place, the next thing, he still had my keys to the house. The next thing I got home, my laptop was gone, my sister's laptop was gone, and everything. And he was back on the streets.
Yeah, that's sadly a fear that most people have when you're, dealing with recovering people, and it's, what does your organization do? What kind of services does it provide?
So we have the whole we've taken this into to do it in a holistic way. We have what we call a drop-in center. Maybe people would call it a clinic here. And the reason why we don't call it a clinic is also because words are powerful. The reason why people don't want to get treatment sometimes is the words that we use. If you tell someone who is an addict, if call them an addict in the first place, that's already sealing their fate. They're not going to look for help. So if you take someone who is recovering or who wants to recover and they say, I'm taking you to a clinic, immediately they'll tell you, I'm not sick. There's nothing wrong with me. More so if you take them to a place and say, you're going to see a mental specialist like a psychiatrist, they don't want to hear that, because what essentially you're saying to them is that you are mentally unwell.
Yes.
But we do understand that this also is a mental health issue. So when they come into the drop-in center, there are no labels. It doesn't talk about it being a drug place or a place where people are being treated for drugs. It's just a drop-in center. And they come in. Yeah, so they come in, they get evaluations according to the World Health Organization standards. But what we have taken the standards even further, we have put into effect. We have taken the standards and everything about treatment, and we have put into consideration our environment in Zimbabwe. We've put into consideration our belief system in Zimbabwe. We've put into consideration our culture and the belief systems that people have. Because if we don't take that into consideration, that means we are essentially taking something from here and we're trying to give it to people and say, just accept it. People will not accept it.
Right.
Because it's foreign.
So I love that. So you're incorporating the values of your own society, your own culture into
Absolutely.
the wellness of the people. And I like that.
Absolutely.
I like what you just said, because it sort of, it takes away the stigma from what people are doing by changing the words. The words do have power. So it's a wellness center or it's a drop-in.
Yes, it's a wellness center. Yes.
Yeah. So you don't feel a certain way, because you're right. The connotation of a word has a certain feel to it, and it makes you feel a certain way. You don't want to participate. Yeah.
So when we're talking about taking into consideration our culture and who we are, one of the aspects that we really knew we had to put into it is the concept of Ubuntu. I think you've heard this. Ubuntu, Hunu, where do we call it in my language? We say Hunu, which is Ubuntu, right? Mm-hmm. Essentially what we are saying is in our communities, we don't believe each person is an individual and can exist as an individual. Now, you will see the difference when we approach this. So if someone is doing drugs in the family, like my brother, we are not going to say it's his decision. He has to want help. That's where I was saying that's the difference.
Right, gotcha.
We are not going to say that, but what we are going to do is that we are going to say, look, one of us is down. We as a family, we are going to sit down and figure out how are we going to help him. Does he have a family? We're going to take care of his family. But in the meantime, we're going to sit him down and try to get him to get treatment, which really is intervention, right?
Right.
And if he is like most of these young people, they are at a point where they are a danger to themselves, a danger to other people. So it can no longer be about them. So the community has to come in. So we will have to enforce the beginning of their treatment until they get to a stabilization. The first 28 days or the first 6 weeks are probably enforced so that they are stabilized. They're seeing doctors. They get psychotropics if they have to, because most of the time they are in psychosis, drug-induced psychosis. So they can make that decision to walk into a hospital, which is what I'm seeing right here. A lot of people that are walking around shouldn't be.
Right.
They should be in a mental institution.
Yes, for sure.
Someone helping them.
For sure.
With medication, they stabilize within a short period of time.
Right. And this is like you just hit the nail right on the head. This is exactly where we are and the difference between the countries, because it's not so much like your country is more of a homogenous group of people. So the preservation of tradition is strong there. Here in the United States, we have so many different cultures, you know, in an international city or country where the only thing you can have pretty much is your family unit. Yeah. Or if you live in a neighborhood that has the same type of people as you, those kind of people are probably, say you live in an Italian neighborhood, maybe the Italians come together as a community and they do things. But a lot of places like New York City, you don't have that. You don't have. No. So you're relying on, you know, just your family unit, and the ideal of Americans, most Americans, is me first. It's me, me, what I'm doing. And you're not worried about, you know, your family. You're not worried about anyone else. You're worried about what I can get, what suits me.
Yeah. So but it's also a culture that was created.
Yes. That's the culture of the United States.
Yeah. Now, it's the same thing in Zimbabwe because of, remember the things that I've said, Zimbabwe crashed as a country, which means even our culture has come under huge attack. A lot of people, in trying to escape, they've abandoned their culture, which is really the one thing that could have held us together. Right. But a lot of people are taking in a lot of foreign things, trying to, you know, I've just spent over 20 years here in the US. If I was somebody else, like a lot of my friends, they've abandoned the culture in Zimbabwe. They're doing whatever they can. They're already Americanized, or they're already British because they're living in Britain, or whatever it is, because it's necessary to be able to integrate. Sure. But I guess my lucky part is that I was in New York City. It's a melting pot. You don't have to change who you are. Right. You can be who you are, and still find a piece of yourself in New York City. So the other aspect of our treatment process is that we also have a sober living space. And again, words are powerful. We don't call it a rehabilitation space. There's resistance to that, and people need to learn that the names are also very powerful. When the young people are told they're going to rehabilitation, They resist because they think they're going into some boot camp, like where the soldiers and the police will be working them hard. And that's the idea in their head. But the ones that are coming to our place, once they're told they're coming to a sober living space, they are reluctant to come. Once they come, and the way we have set up the space, they love the space. They want to be there. For the first time, they feel good about themselves because the space is made to make them understand they are important. If someone is going to put you in a space like that, you're important. There's no one who would put a person they do not like in a space like ours.
Wow.
You understand?
Is there a length of time that they're allowed to stay there? Or
yes. So our program was designed over the 90-day period, which is the minimum that a physical detox can happen. So within that 90 days, what we're saying is that the first 6 weeks, they're going through that acute detox phase where the drug is essentially just withdrawing from their body. But while it's withdrawing from their body, it can induce a lot of turmoil, including psychosis. If they are really in an acute psychosis, either we transfer them into a mental institution where they get stabilized, or they start from most times they start from a mental institution, because the government does have mental institutions, and it becomes a little cheaper for the people who are also doing it, because it's not cheap, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Now, once they are stable for about 28 days in a mental institution, now we are no longer dealing with someone in psychosis. We are dealing with someone who can understand what we're doing. Then we begin another journey until they hit 90 days. But towards the end of their 90 days, we start a process where we are reintegrating them back into the community. They don't just get released and thrown back into the community, because essentially they'll last a week, 2 weeks,
right?
And they will relapse.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset. And I mean, I'm sure there's a physical dependency as well, but the mindset too.
Yeah. So because they, after the 90 days, we want them to start a process of the mind hold. The drug has a hold on the mind.
Yes.
And that can last for a year or 2 years, as they say. So that's where the biggest issue is, because once they go back into the community, their triggers are right there.
Right.
The same things that made them go into the drug situation is still in the community. So while they're inside, we're also trying to work with their families, getting them the counseling that they need, getting them to understand what they're dealing with, so that when the person comes back, they don't trigger them right back by the things they say, the things they do, and also understand why he was doing drugs in the first place. So we have to walk that journey with them. So it becomes a little more holistic than just taking people inside, releasing them. It becomes a cycle.
Love it. Wow. Why don't we implement that that formula here? I don't know.
I want to do it. I really want to do it. I said there are resources here, right?
Right.
If I could get people that I can work with, I would love us to do that.
Yeah.
This is why you find me. I'm in San Diego. It's not by an accident. I am really interested in starting and implementing the Ubuntu treatment. That's what I call it, the Ubuntu treatment here, where we do not wait for people to ask for help, because they're not going to ask for help because they can't.
Right.
But we need to kickstart, and then they can make a decision when they're stable.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have a website where we can find more information?
Yes, it's Mubatirapamwe Trust. Mubatirapamwe, actually it's Mubatirapamwe.org.
Okay.
Yeah, Mubatirapamwe.org.
And how can we? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll text you the correct spelling.
Yep. Send me the information. And we'll put that in the notes of the episode here, so you can all the viewers can go down and see, and listeners can go down and see that as well. How can we get in touch with you if we need to get in touch with you?
Okay, I will also give you my number.
Okay, or email or whatever.
Yeah, or
Social
email. Media. Yeah, it's the email is info@Mubatirapamwe Trust. Info@Mubatirapamwe Trust.org.
Okay.
So I will give you all that, and then we can put it in the footnotes because I know the spelling part may be difficult for others.
It's a little difficult for me too.
So I will spell it out for you.
All right.
And then give you all the information. All right.
Well, I want to thank you for coming to OneMicNite podcast and sharing this information with us. And hopefully, anybody who's listening and watching the podcast episode will either make a donation. And if you can't make a donation, please share the episode, like the episode, and just share the information so we can get the word out there to help people and make human connections around the globe.
So and I'm sorry, can I add this in terms of what people can do?
Absolutely.
If there are those who are interested to go to Africa and see, and while they're there, they can participate in a program where we can work and they can come and work with us. I would love that.
There you go. You have it. And maybe we could talk outside of this too and set up some kind of virtual thing for you to do too. I don't know if.
Absolutely.
We'll talk after this.
Okay.
We'll do some things.
No problem.
All right. I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of OneMicNite podcast. Please make sure you like the episode, comment down below, and definitely share this episode. You can find more at OneMicNite. OneMicNite is spelled ONEMICNITE. Go to the Facebook page. Drop your flyers on the Facebook page. Join the artist and people community. OneMicNite is celebrating 16 years of being around, and we're going to have a special birthday episode coming up. We've got a few special birthday greetings that people have sent in. So please, you can find me at Marcos Luis, MARCOSLUIS. Thank you very much for joining me. And remember, be inspired by others, but most importantly, be inspired by yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.